Call meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. Deeroff.
Mrs. Moyer, can you be the go-between?
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
can you confirm that you're present, please?
Yes, I can hardly hear you. And I have my sound all the way out.
Mrs. Kratz.
Here.
Ms. Nyman. I know she's here. Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Brad Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Roger Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Zawada.
Here.
Mr. Brophy. Mr. Panarello.
Here.
And we can confirm Mrs. Nyman.
Ms. Deeroff, can we confirm that you can hear them when they speak?
Okay, when someone speaks.
Mrs. Deeroff, this is Dr. David Heiser. Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You want one?
Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the United States
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no one signed up for public comment period number 1, so we'll be going to the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Panarello. I just have a couple of announcements. So good evening, Boyertown Area School District. My name is Dr. Scott David Heiser, Superintendent of Schools here in Boyertown. And I want to thank you for joining us, for those in person and those are watching this virtually. Just a couple of announcements. We did make an announcement about an hour ago that school will be running on the school district will be running on a 2-hour delay schedule tomorrow. Most importantly, it's for the safety of our students and our staff with regard to the temperatures that we're expected to experience tomorrow. They're some of the lowest temperatures, I think, in the past 2 to 3 years. And the last thing we want to do is have somebody waiting outside for a bus stop or somebody that has to walk into and through town to a building in those types of extreme temperatures. So we will again look at things tomorrow, make a decision regarding Thursday as to what's the best situation for our school district moving forward. For this evening, this is a special meeting of the Board of School Directors, and it's really a special meeting because it's focused on one topic area, and that's the budget 2025-26. So this evening, and to the board members, I would ask that this evening we utilize the time as very much a workshop type of time. This is an information session. It's really for us to be able to deliver a lot of information to all of you as board members and to our community in regards to a number of things that impact and are affected by the budget process, what's in the budget, some recommendations that we have with regard to the budget, and it gives all of you as board members an opportunity to ask questions, whether you wanted to do that during the time of which something comes up that you're unfamiliar with or you want more information, or whether it's something at the end. And if we have the answers to those questions, we'll try to deliver that in the moment. If there's some information that we don't have, we'll get that to you as quickly as possible, or perhaps our next scheduled meeting. So we did, for this meeting, did advertise this meeting per Sunshine Law and have posted it appropriately. So I'd like to begin the budget presentation if we could. Okay, we're going to start with Ms. Denicola, our CFO of Boyertown Area School District. She's going to be the driver of the slide deck that we have here this evening. You're going to hear from a number of other administrators that are part of our leadership team, bringing their experience and their thoughts and ideas related to some of the things that we want to discuss with you tonight. Again, we're not making decisions tonight. This is an information opportunity session to ask questions, to think broadly, think out loud, and really allow the opportunity for dialogue to insist. So the only thing I ask is that we all keep an open mind, keep a respectful dialogue that continues here at the board level as we develop and help our students to success here in not only this year, but as we set a budget for 25-26. So, Mrs. Denicole, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight is again an educational session, informational. We're going to be sharing a lot of information. The presentation is out there in board docs for everyone to review as well. And please, any questions you have, please ask. But we hope this brings some insight into the overall 25-26 budget and how the budget's built and the largest pieces that make up the budget. Allison, you may have to advance. It's now not working. There it goes. So for tonight's agenda, we're going to review the district demographics. We're going to review our enrollment, our trends, our history, and our projected enrollment. Speak of our specific groups, our special education population, cyber charter enrollment, and BCTC enrollment. We're going to review the budgeted expenditures for 2025-26, the budgeted revenues for 2025-26. We will talk about our real estate assessment values, our millage trends, and then we will end with some discussion on our new and expanded district initiatives, which includes the multi-tiered system of supports, full-day kindergarten, financial literacy, support staff and contracted staff retainment and recruitment, our virtual learning program, and then our safety initiatives. Our district demographics as of January 1. For enrollment, we have 6,293 students. This includes 2,704 elementary students, 3,460 secondary students, 54 students in our...
Sorry, I cannot hear.
I don't know what else I can do. 54 students in our pre-K counts program and 75 students in our virtual academy. Our virtual academy numbers have jumped up slightly from this January 1 number, but as of January 1, we had 75 students. Should I just keep going? For employees, we currently have 716 employees, 30 administrators, 474 FTEs for teachers, 9 long-term substitutes, full-time support staff of 95, part-time support staff of 102, and 6 support supervisory employees. These employees account for 69% of our total expenditures in our general fund. Contracted employees includes our 46 teacher substitutes through Kelly Services, 156 paraprofessionals through CRESS, and then also we contract out for social workers and other mental health supports. These contracted employees account for 11% of the total budget. Our student enrollment, in 2019-20, we had a student enrollment of 6,914. In 2024-25, as of October 1, 24-25, we were at 6,293 students. Based upon the Pennsylvania Department of Education's enrollment projections, which takes into account birth rates and other factors, they project our enrollment by 23-33-34 to be 6,365 students.
And this is one area in which we're going to be asking the board at a future meeting to put out an RFP for a demographic study. It's probably time. There hasn't been one done in 5-6 years. There's a lot of future growth in most, especially right now in New Hanover, and a number of different projects that are kind of in the pipeline that we need a better indication as to where our enrollment grows. If we're going to start making suggestions and recommendations with regard to facilities, programs, and certainly our staffing needs, we want to make sure that we're looking at that. So I would expect at a future meeting here within the next 30 days that we'll have an RFP for you that we'd like you to look at and approve to be able to go out to bid for an RFP. There are a number of many organizations that complete these, one of which is Montgomery County Planning Commission, as well as Berks has a commission in which to do, and a number of private firms. So there is a cost. It's not that significant, but it will give some, and it should yield some significant data for us to really think about what's on the horizon when we start looking out. One of the things that we're planning to do in the next 4 months is create a strategic plan involving our community stakeholder groups. And we will want some of this information in front of them as we suggest some of the things that we have in recommending what should be the future in terms of continuous improvement objectives. So.
The next enrollment we'd like to review is our economically disadvantaged enrollment. In the 2019-20 year, we had 1,921 students identified as economically disadvantaged, which was 27.8% of our total enrollment. In 2024-25, it's 2,212 students, or 32% of our enrollment. Projecting out based upon our 5-year average growth rate, you can see that by 23, 33, 34, if we continue to grow at that rate, we could be at 43.8% of our enrollment as economically disadvantaged.
And I think what's important to note about this, too, as you drill down in some of the data, we currently have 5 buildings right now: Colbertdale Elementary School, Boyertown Area Middle School West, Washington Elementary School, Boyertown Elementary School, and Earl Elementary School that all are identified as Title I schools, and they qualify through basically what you see here in economically disadvantaged based on free and reduced and where their averages are. Right now, they receive different title services that indicate to assist those students that may be in need within, and for programmatic purposes, the things that we know can help assist. Part of the correlation with economically disadvantaged tends to also be special education, some of which is because at early ages maybe some of the services that weren't provided or could not be afforded to those students at that particular time do add and compound the need for interventions, and Title I helps to service that for, and the monies for that helps to service that for us, and they are state appropriations that are given to us in each school year, and that varies. Buildings sometimes will fall in or out of being identified based on their enrollment and based on their significant needs. Right now, Earl Elementary School is really one of those schools that was right on the line, identified literally by a student or two that shifted it in or out in terms of that. So that's a significant note, and for us in terms of how we identify what sort of things that we know inside of those monies that we want to provide for those particular buildings and students.
Our English learners enrollment. English learners were previously identified by PDE as English as a second language. We now refer to it as English learners. 2019, we had 29 students. In 2024-25, we have 68 students, and projecting that out based upon our 5-year average growth rate, by 23, 33, 34, we could be at 407 students. We do currently only have 1 professional FTE position or full-time equivalent position and 1 paraprofessional FTE contracted to support our English learners.
I think, again, what's important to note in regards to this, and we talk a lot about unfunded mandates, English language learning program is an unfunded mandate across the state. It has to be locally funded for all needs, while there's requirements and metrics that need to be met inside of this. It is a completely unfunded mandate, and that's important to know. We have a requirement, but yet there's no monies coming down from the federal or state governments in regards to helping to support it.
Our special education enrollment in 2019-20, 1,538 of our students, or 22% of our enrollment, were identified as special education. In 2024-25, it's 1,625 students, or 26% of our enrollment. And projecting that out based upon the 5-year average growth rate, by 23, 33, 34, we could be looking at 55% enrollment. Our current FTEs to support our special education students are 4 autistic support teachers, 5 emotional support, 5 life skills, 58 learning support, 8 speech language, 3 special ed liaisons, and a transition coordinator. At this time, Ms. Bartman's going to speak on the special education caseload limits.
Good evening. I'm here to speak with you a little bit regarding what the caseload limits that are set forth regarding Chapter 14, regulations that are set forth for us. We currently have autistic support classrooms. At the elementary level, we have 2 of them that are at Colbertdale. The caseload limits for students in autistic support that are serviced at the supplemental and full-time is 8 students. Right now, in both of our classes, we have 7 students in each of those classrooms. So therefore, as you can see, we only have 2 openings for the upcoming school year and for the remainder of this school year, as a matter of fact. Plus, we have 11 students that are transitioning in from early intervention services that have the disability category as autism. So we would need to be looking, that doesn't necessarily mean all of those students will end up in our autistic support program. However, we need to be ready to service the students. The next one is our high school autistic support classroom. We currently have 1 of them, and we do have our maximum amount of students in that program already. We have 8 students. As you are aware, students are able to stay in school until their 22nd birthday. So therefore, we do have students that are remaining in school for a longer period of time. Plus, we also have students that are going to be ready to transition from 8th grade from our Middle School West Autistic Support Program to the high school, and we have 3 of those students. So that would increase our caseloads at the high school as well. Our emotional support program has 12 student maximum set forth by Chapter 14 regulations, and that is for full-time students. Currently, we only have 1 elementary emotional support program that services all of our students, and our current enrollment there is 10 students, and we only have 1 student that would be transitioning next year to 5th grade. So therefore, we would only have 3 openings in our entire program. Our life skills support program has 12 students maximum, again, regarding the Chapter 14 regulations. We currently have 2 life skills support classrooms, both at Washington, and our enrollment there is 11 students in each classroom. Again, that only allows for 2 openings for the remainder of this year, plus we only have 1 student that is transitioning to the life skills support program at the middle school. And then our learning support program that we have at our elementary, we have learning support in all 6 of our elementary buildings. Our caseload numbers are running a little high, as you can see as the slide shows. It's approximately 18 students. You also have to take into consideration that we do have students that are being tested. Students come through what we call our student support team process. They're currently being tested, so they may qualify. We also have 67 students that are going to be transitioning from early intervention into school-age programming. Now, again, we don't know where all those students will fall. However, they will need some sort of special education services, and we'll be learning more about those students in February when we have our early intervention transition meetings. This is just a little bit of a breakdown of special education by identification here in Boyertown. You can see our numbers have pretty much remained consistent. You will see an increase in autism over the years, but the others have remained pretty consistent over time.
Moving on to charter school enrollment. In 2019-20, we had 187 students enrolled in external charter schools, or 2.7% of our enrollment. It jumped up during the pandemic. We went to 363 students in 2020-21. In 2024-25, we are at 286 students, or 4.1% of our population. If we look at the trend based on our 5-year average growth rate, we could be at 327 students by 23, 33, 34. As far as the 2025-26 budget, the budgeted cost for external charter school enrollment is $6,205,680, or 4.12% of our total budget. The cost that we pay to the external charter schools per student from a regular education basis is $15,971.61 to the charter school. For special education, there has been a change effective in January. So for a special ed student that's enrolled in a cyber charter school, the rate that we pay is $31,716.03. If we had a student identified as special education enrolled in a brick and mortar charter school, we would pay $39,992.30. We currently do not have any students enrolled in a brick and mortar charter school that are identified as special ed. So all of our students that are identified as special ed that are enrolled in an external charter school are in the cyber charter.
Ms. Nicola, Ms. Deeroff has her hand up.
You want to ask her what her question is?
Ms. Deeroff, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've had my hand up quite a while. Is there anything you can do to have the sound louder? I could not hear a thing. I hear voices, a voice, but nothing is coming through as words. It's all distorted because the sound is way down. And I have mine up as loud as I can get it on my computer. Is there anything you can do to get the sound up?
You could possibly, we could call to you so you can hear the audio that way, or you could log on to the YouTube feed, which would probably have better audio.
Ms. Zeroff, would you prefer that we make a call out to you to hear audio, or would you?
I can hear you fine when you speak, so I don't know why I can't hear the rest. I tried to phone the last time and that wasn't good either.
Try YouTube then.
I don't understand why we have so much trouble with our Zoom.
I will email you, if you go onto your email, the link to click on for the YouTube feed.
Do you want me to do that?
Yes, I'll have the email to you in about 2 minutes.
Okay, should I go out of this completely then?
No, stay here because we will be able to hear you ask questions.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things I'd just like to add to Ms. Denacola's slide here with charter school enrollment, I think one of the responsibilities we have and we need to do a better job of is really identifying residency when it comes to our cyber and charter school students. When a student, for instance, if a student registers here as a Boyertown student and then makes a decision to go to a cyber charter, the cyber charter really has no responsibility in terms of checking residency or anything of that nature. It falls back to us. And I think one of the things that we're going to work on inside of administratively is figuring out a 3-year plan for this. It's something that really, there's not a need every year, but every 3 years we should really be doing a deeper dive to checking on residency as it relates to all of our charter school students, whether it be brick and mortar or cyber, to understand, have they remained here in residency or have they moved outside of the Boyertown School District residency lines. And really, as we don't have contact with them any longer, the charter school, whether it be cyber or brick and mortar, really does not engage in those residency components. So we could have some residency issues with regard to some of these. Not to say that we do, but I would simply imagine, just based on the volume of student that we do have, that there probably is some instances where I think we could probably question residency, and we have some plans of how to seek information to understand that a little bit better. So as that evolves, we're going to be sharing that back with you. But I think you can see, if we do have students that do identify or have been identified as special education, those dollars can add up pretty quickly. And I think some deep dives into this every 3 years would allow us a better indication of making sure that residency is true, and that the bills that when they do come from the charter schools are accurate and do reflect our resident students. So we'll keep you abreast of that, but it's something that we do have on the list to move on pretty quickly. And some of that's really done through summertime, when there's a little bit of a relaxation of not everything's due the next day, and we can do some things through some summer months to be able to aid in that. So we'll keep you informed.
Mrs. Denicola, could you give us a list of maybe the top 3 charter schools that are taking our students?
Well, I can tell you the very top one is Commonwealth Charter Academy. The latest enrollment, over 56% of our charter school students are enrolled at Commonwealth Charter. All of the other ones, it kind of trickles down. The percentages are kind of spread out evenly, but I can get you the complete list, the percentages by school. Our BCTC enrollment In 2019-20, we had 212 of our students enrolled in a BCTC program. In 2024-25, we have 232 students enrolled at BCTC. Looking at a 5-year average growth rate, we could see that number climb to 277 students. We are the largest in the county of students enrolled at BCTC. It is a very competitive enrollment, so not everybody that wants to get in does get in. And I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to share in regards to BCTC.
All technical schools right now really have a good problem, but it is a problem on their hands. They have more students applying to come to their schools than ever before, as outlined by the government probably about 10 years ago with the college debt crisis that began. There was a large push to have students move more into the skilled workforce and technical skilled workforce that a CTC can offer. And with that, we saw a little bit shifting of demographic of students, really some high performing students now seeking interest in some of those CTC schools and here at BCTC, and other students in a more traditional demographic that had been attending not being able to get in because of that nature to it. So it compounds a problem in that, we have some real students that want to gain those work skills and get right into the workforce, but they don't have the facility large enough to do that. And this is not just a BCTC problem, as Mr. Brophy knows. This is statewide and really national in terms of some of that. So we're going to be working with the BCTC and thinking out loud about some of the ways to expand some of that programming to offer even more students.
I believe we have a maximum number of BCTC too, and I think it's well below 277. I think it's somewhere around 240 or less, Roger. So that number, we can't even get to that number as far as I know.
And again, as we're the largest provider here in the county toward that, there's some things that we can think outwardly about and maybe assist the BCTC with, and helping with Mr. Upgrove, maybe some twilight programming that might be able to shift some things and some other different ways to approach this. And they've probably talked about some of that.
We have classes at night, and we can't, the same problem, staffing and room. You'd have to start building onto the buildings and more classrooms.
Yeah, and there's been a significant amount of money. Most of it has been in grant monies, none of which has gone down really the pathways to elicit that much more expansion, right? They haven't really the state has not offered those types of monies yet, but I know there is some conversations about that. Facilities really need to be significantly expanded or other places sought after.
Yeah, the only drawback on that is it takes years to add on. That's something that doesn't happen overnight. So you're talking 2 years from now until they build on, and we're already maxed out. So 2 years from now, the kids is going in 10th grade. Anybody after 9th and on up are going to still have a hard time getting in.
And I know we've been asked as a school district, and other school districts, throughout the Commonwealth have been asked, maybe to think out loud a little bit differently about some of the programs that had been traditionally there that might be able to be hosted back in buildings if buildings have the spaces to be able to do that. We don't want to compete against CTCs, but we want to be able to provide maximum opportunities for as many students that want to get into some of these schools. So, here with limited spacing, but there may be some other districts that as enrollment does drop, that there might be some things to outwardly think about to be able to provide this. But this is it's a problem, but it's a good problem, right? We have a lot of students really knocking at BCTC's door that wants to get in.
Dumb question. Being that I know we're a Berks County school, but we have significant students in Montgomery County. Has there ever been a discussion possibly with Montgomery County TC?
Yeah, their problem is they're dealing with the same problems,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
The next item we'd like to review is the district spending per pupil for Berks County. This is based upon the most recently released PDE data, which was 22-23. You'll see the Boyertown Area School District is when the districts are ranked highest to lowest. We are number 12 of the 18 Berks County school districts in spending per student. Looking further out and combining both Berks and Montgomery County, when we rank pupil spending from highest to lowest, we are number 34 out of the 40 Berks and Montgomery County school districts in our spending.
Ms. Denicola, can you go back to your the former slide, just the Berks County, where we land 12 out of 18. Can you go through column as to what some of those things include? For instance, support services per ADM, non-instructional per ADM. Mm-hmm. What sort of things are calculated in that?
So in the instruction per ADM, that would be where PD is looking at the overall functions that fall under instruction. So it's going to be regular education, special education, pre-K, anything related to education of the students, direct education. Support services is going to be your facilities, your business office, your food service department, everything that supports the district. So it's on a very high level grouping, educational expenses versus support services. Non-instructional are going to be the support services will also include pupil health, things like that. Non-instructional is a very small portion of things that are not directly related to actual instruction of students. Then there are facilities acquisition and construction costs. These would be things spent as part of the general fund budget that are classified as facilities acquisition and facilities acquisition and construction. And then the other financing uses are your debt service, your dues and fees. Those would be the columnar definitions of what PDE is accruing in these numbers.
And one thing to point out, when we combine the list of Montgomery County and Berks County, one thing that stood out, now we have, and I think based on Mrs. Denicola's earlier data, we have believe it was 62% of our student population comes out of Montgomery County, with 38% coming out of Berks County. If we were to attribute our school district per pupil spending inside of the Montgomery County schools, we would rank last in pupil spending. In Berks County, we're 12 out of 18. I believe what it was with regard to that. So just something to note, and you can see the listing of all combined schools there.
The projected 2025-26 budgeted expenditures as of today are salaries budgeting at $59,261,827, benefits at $41,650,862. Those two line items combine to total 67% of our total proposed budget for 2025-26. Contracted services account for 11% of our budget, $16,427,279. Purchase property services are 1% of our budget, $1,094,422. Other purchase services, which would be in the 500 object code, as dictated by PDE, would include our contracted, any contracted placements, educational placements, also includes our charter school costs, and many other things that are just grouped largely as other purchase services. It includes those large ticket items. Our budget for that line item is $16,372,172. Again, approximately 11% of our budget. Our supplies, which includes all of our utilities as well, is $6,290,945, or 4% of our budget. Property and equipment would be $1,771,478, or 1% of our budget. Our dues, fees, and interest on our debt are 2% of our budget at $3,039,322. And then our debt principal payments and other uses are 3% of our budget at $4,787,000. For total projected expenditures for 2025-26 of $150,695,308. Our budgeted salaries for 2025-26, broken down by what type of expenditure, what type of instruction it is. Regular education accounts for $33,594,714. Special education accounts for $8,178,603. Our student services, which would be our counselors, health departments, those kind of things, would be $7,708,407. Administration would be $3,395,546. Business services would be $546,876. Facilities accounts for $3,772,486. Information technology accounts for just under $1 million at $992,145. And then our co-curricular, which includes all our co-curricular programs, including athletics, account for $1,073,051. So total salaries would be $59,261,827.
And I think what's important to note is, often said, and, I say this quite often, we are in the people business, right? What drives schools are people. It's teachers, it's administration, it's staff, it's all support. It's a people-driven business in which we're in, and nearly 70% typically. That's a pretty standard. 70% of a school district budget really accounts for salaries and benefits, and you can see that coming through here quite largely.
I will also add that you can see that 84% of our total budgeted salaries are services directly related to students, regular education, special education, then student services. That comprise 84% of our total salary budget. For 2025-26, our budgeted purchase services and supplies, again, that's going to be charter school, external charter school costs. It's going to be educational services for placements or other items of contracted educational services in our buildings. Facilities is going to be, the rentals that they may need, fixing of equipment, any kind of purchase, that kind of service, information technology, and then transportation. Charter school is again budgeted at $6,205,680. Educational services are budgeted at $21,370,886. Facilities purchase services are $821,659. Information technology purchase services are $251,700, and then transportation is budgeted at $6,248,000. As far as facilities and IT, their combined total of purchase services are less than 1% of our total projected 2025-26 budget. For our building and departmental budgets, each building gets a per pupil allocation of spending for their classroom needs and different items. Boyertown Elementary is budgeted at $78,000. Colebrookdale Elementary has a budget of $30,000. Earl Elementary has a budget of $35,000. Gilbertsville Elementary has a budget of $61,000. New Hanover Upper Frederick Elementary has a budget of $77,500. Washington Elementary has a budget of $54,000. Middle School East is at $131,000. Middle School West is at a budget of $104,000. Our high school is at a budget of $425,000, and our athletic department is at a budget of $736,837 for a total budgeted of $1,732,337. The total building and athletic budgets are 1.15% of our total projected 25-26 general fund budget.
Equate to a per person amount? Is that how you figure it?
For the buildings, they are a per pupil amount. One item that we need to review is tax collector compensation. Compensation rates for our elected tax collectors must be established every 4 years. In February 2021, the tax collector rates were not increased. They remained at $2 per real estate property tax bill collected, $1.35 per capita tax bill collected, plus an additional 5 cents per bill if the district depository is used. And then we also provide a $500 stipend for office needs. That compensation rate has been in place since at least February 2017. So at this time, we were proposing an increase in the tax collector compensation rate. We would be proposing a real estate tax rate of $2.50 per bill, a per capita tax rate of $1.50 per bill, and again, keep the additional 5 cents per bill if the district depository is used, and then increase the stipend for office needs to $750. This item we wish to put on the board agenda for approval for January 28th, as this needs to be established by February.
Ms. Denicola, can you just provide for the board some background to this? How many tax collectors do we have within our sending district? Our collection rates as it relates to their jobs that they do, and why we feel like this is an opportunity and a need to propose this compensation rate.
So the proposed compensation rate, based upon the number of bills issued and each municipality, would be about a budgeted cost of about $109,000. The collection rate for the district remains very strong. It's upwards of 98%. So our tax collectors do a fantastic job in their collections. We currently have 10 collectors for each of the municipalities. I've never seen it at any district a collection rate this strong. So they continue to go above and beyond in the collections, and they have not seen that increase since at least 2017. So that's why we would be proposing an increase now. Good. One of our other largest expenditures in our budget outside of salaries and benefits is our bonds and debt outstanding. In the current year, 2024-25, our debt service expenditures are $6,585,926, which is 4.55% of our budget. That includes principal payments of $3,779,000 and interest payments of $2,806,926. You'll see our total principal outstanding is roughly $81 million, and total outstanding with principal and interest is about $101. We do always look for our refunding opportunities as our bond issues become eligible to be refunded and the rates remain at a preferential level that it makes sense to refund. We would bring those parameters back to the board for approval to refund as they became eligible to be refunded. Those eligibility is established based upon IRS rules and regulations. Our budgeted revenues, local revenue is currently budgeted at $103,542,203. State revenue is currently budgeted at $42,231,531. And federal revenue is budgeted at $840,000 for total budgeted revenue of $146,614,434. Local revenue in our 2025-26 proposed budget does include a 3% real estate tax increase. State revenue assumes flat funding of our educational subsidies, such as basic ed and special ed. We would budget an increase for our reimbursement type subsidies, which include our PSERS reimbursement and our FICA reimbursement. You will notice that our federal revenue has budgeted revenue has decreased, and that's due to the expiration of the ESSER funds. And you will see that, again, our budgeted revenues, 71% of it is comprised of our local revenues. To review our taxable real estate, broken down between the two counties, you will see that in Berks County, Berks County accounts for 43.3% of our total assessed properties, and Berks County homes and businesses account for 42% of our total taxable assessed properties. Berks County accounts for 38% of our student enrollment, so 40% of our total taxable, but 38% of our student enrollment. Montgomery County, 56.7% of our total assessed properties, 58% of our total taxable assessed properties, and Montgomery County students account for 62% of our student enrollment. So you can kind of see the breakdown between residential, commercial, exempt, and utility. The relative percentages between the counties are pretty consistent. Residential and farm in the 86 to 81.9%, or 75.6%. And then commercial properties, 8.2% to 14.2%, and you can kind of see the breakout between both counties and where the assessment lies. Our millage rates, we constantly talk about millage rate and what the increase is going to be as a percentage of a mill. And I wanted to just give a little definition of a mill. It is how the rate of real estate tax revenue is generated on the tax assessments. And a mill is calculated in terms of 1/1000th of assessed value. So for instance, if you're taxing something at 5.164 mils, you would multiply the assessed value by that equivalent millage rate of 0.005164. So that's just the math behind the millage rates. For 2025-26, Boyertown's Act 1 index is 4.8%. The board did previously approve a resolution that we would not exceed in our 2025-26 budget a rate in excess of that 4.8% adjusted index. So for the 2025-26 proposed budget at this point, it has a 3% increase projected, and that millage rate would be 32.69 mils. You will see the average impact of that 3% millage increase, which equates to 0.952 mil increase across each of our municipalities. In New Hanover, the average assessment is $158,724. That would equate to an annual increase of $151.12. In Bechtelsville, our average assessment is $95,219, and that would equate to an annual impact of $90.66.
Any questions on millage rates or that annual impact, what it would be to, that was where Mrs. Denicola kind of drills down to see what a homeowner living in one of those municipalities, what that would feel like on a tax bill and comparative to last year.
The next item we would like to discuss is a potential real estate tax rebate for homeowners. So the state of Pennsylvania does offer a real estate a property tax rebate to eligible homeowners based upon income guidelines. What we would be proposing would be something that matches what the state does. They would have to be a homeowner that owns, occupies, and paid school real estate taxes on a residence within our district in 2025. They would have to meet file status qualifications being age 65 or older, or under age 65 with a spouse age 65 or older, be a widow or widower age 50 to 64, or be permanently disabled age 18 to 64. They would also need to meet the income guidelines established under the state's rebate, and the maximum amount of rebate payable would not exceed $250 per year. The district would also not issue a rebate when our amount added to the state rebate would exceed the total amount of the school district property tax paid, and no rebates would be issued if the amount of the rebate is less than $10. So when we analyze what that would look like for us from a budgetary perspective, within Berks and Montgomery County, the population that is over age 65 is about 17 to 18% of everybody in the county. So if we apply those percentages to our number of homesteads and farmsteads, those would be the owner-occupied residences within our district. And then apply that half of them, and even knowing that half of them, that would be a high number, that half of that population would be eligible, applying $250 to that, it would be, for Berks County, expense of $110,875, and for Montgomery County, $156,250 for a total rebate back to the taxpayers of $267,125. So we do recognize that, you know, the local community has the highest level of support towards the education of students, and that, you know, there's tax increases that have to happen to continue to, you know, support students and support programs and increase programs. Recognize that the difficulty of that might have for certain members of our community, and are putting forth this real estate tax rebate as a way to help some of those community members.
I think part of that goes hand in hand back to the previous couple slides that Mrs. Denicola shared, where, you know, if you look at residential and farm in both Montgomery and Berks, you know, in Montgomery it's nearly 87% falls back on the residential. In Berks, 76% falls back into the residential. So, you know, inside of that, we do know we have vulnerable demographics and folks that, you know, have some challenges with that, the way the tax codes and laws are written in the state of Pennsylvania, and how they fund school districts. is one thing, and how we can then figure out some ways to be able to assist that to some of our more vulnerable families and residents. So this is an idea that's not new. It's not our newest thought bubble. This is something that has taken place throughout many different districts in the state and regionally and neighboring districts here that do offer a rebate program. So it would be something that we'd ask the board to think about and consider. And while there could be and would be simply even just one rebate, there's going to be some lost revenue. It is a give back to the community. As a school district and its community have to be very much similar and on the same page, and how we can give back to some of our local residents.
The state rebate does provide a $1,000 rebate up to $8,270 in income, and the state will provide a $380 rebate if you're up to $46,250 in income. So they do have some income limits established, and we would follow those state limits. We're now going to move into our district recommended initiatives, again, which are our multi-tiered system of supports, full-day kindergarten, financial literacy, which is another PDE requirement, our support staff and contracted staff retainment and recruitment, our virtual learning program, and then touch on some safety initiatives. So for our multi-tiered system of supports, Ms. Bartman or Ms. Horton and Ms. Landis will be discussing these.
Hello. Multi-tiered system of supports is really something that would bring together the Office of Teaching and Learning and our Pupil Services Department. For many years, we've had something called RTII here in Boyertown, which you may have remembered we talked about when we did some of our data presentations and talked about some of the additional academic supports that we currently have available for students who need a little bit more than that Tier 1 regular classroom instruction. But MTSS takes it a step further, and it's really a proactive and preventative framework that looks at both the academic and the behavioral needs of students. Dr. Horton's going to speak for a moment to what the pyramid means there that you see in the diagram in front of you that tells you a little bit more about what MTSS is.
So with MTSS, we have a tiered system of support for students. As you're looking at the diagram here with the triangle, you'll see that we have 3 different areas on that triangle. We have the bottom, which is the base in green, and that's a level of support that is something that all students participate in. And generally speaking, about 80 or 90% of students will be successful with that level of support. So when we're talking about Tier 1, this is instruction in the classroom. This is something that all students are participating in. If we're thinking about that behavioral piece, we're talking about the climate and culture in the school building, the things that we're doing to promote positive behaviors, friendships, peer relationships. In the classroom, we're talking instruction that teachers are providing to all students in reading and math. And their other content areas. When you're looking at that middle section of the triangle, this is an area where some students would benefit from extra support. So this is for that percentage of students who are still struggling or not meeting the success that we would expect with that Tier 1 classroom or all student instruction. So at this level, we have students who may be participating in intervention groups from an academic standpoint, or these are our students who have participated or will participate in our social skills groups, just to have a better understanding of friendship. How do I work with others in groups, and to address those concerns? And then there's a very small percentage of our students, as you look at the top of the triangle, who need an extra layer of support. So these are our students who may be getting one-on-one instruction. In the past, you've heard me talk about our school-based counselors that we have utilized grant funds for. These are students from that behavioral component or mental health, maybe getting a one-on-one support from the counselors there, or students who academically are getting even higher level of instruction and support to help them meet with success in those different areas. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Go ahead.
So I forgot to say, so if you're looking at that triangle, a good way to think of it is all students, some students, and then a few students needing that top level of support. As you're looking here, also with some of the bullet points, we have added some additional staffing to help us meet these MTSS goals that we're presenting to you today. When we're looking at our buildings, we know that we have some small elementary school buildings and we have some of our larger buildings. So we're looking here to add counseling support in our buildings with full-time counselors to our staff to help with these initiatives to provide students those different tiers and level of supports. So when we're looking at that equity piece, we know that our smallest buildings, such as Earl and Colebrookdale, have a counselor to student ratio of 1 to 230, 250 students. When we're looking at our largest elementary school, Boyertown Elementary School, we have 1 counselor to 630 or so students. So we're looking to add those levels of support so that as we're providing the different levels for students at that tier 1, 2, and 3, that we have the staff in place to meet those needs and help coordinate those different services.
MTSS is something that we'd love to come back and speak to you about in some more detail in the future. It's something that many area districts already have in place, and we do not have fully in place in Boyertown at this time. Every year we participate in a leadership series through the Berks County Intermediate Unit, and this year's focus has been on MTSS, and Boyertown has a team that's been participating to learn more about MTSS and how we can further help support both the academic and behavioral needs of our students by moving more in this direction.
Is there any specific guidelines that you've learned about maybe case workloads?
So we know when we're talking about the student, counselor-student ratio, our National Association, American School Counseling Association, they recommend a ratio of 1 to 250 for that ideal ratio to support students in buildings. Later on, we're going to talk a little bit more about safety and security and the PCCD levels of support and those tiers as well. And when we're looking at what's put forward from PCC, the Pennsylvania Commission for Crime and Delinquency, this is where some of our grant funding has come from in the past to support these counseling positions and social work positions. They have levels or tiers as well. And tier 1 or level 1 is the minimum requirement that districts have to meet in order to utilize funds for the second tiers, tier 2 and tier 3. So if we're looking at that, the recommendation in PCCD for level 3, which would be optimal, right? The ideal scenario, that's looking at a counselor to student ratio of 1 to 250 as well.
Is that what you are proposing here?
So with the addition of 2.5 counselors, we would be much closer to that 250 ratio, 1 to 250, but we would not quite be hitting that mark. We would need to add, at the elementary level, 2 more counselors in order for all of our buildings to have that ratio.
Okay.
We're much closer at that ratio at the middle school. We're pretty much at that 1 to 250 mark for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We are in the 1 to 300, 340 range at the high school, but the elementary school level is where we have that biggest discrepancy. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. And I think as a board, one of the things you need to think about when talking about MTSS is this is a framework, right? Each school brings in its own framework to try to identify the needs based on the population of students that they have, and you're trying to fit the need, fit programs, fit personnel, fit things into the needs that you see. So some of the things in a MTSS program would be different types of screening tools that we could utilize. Can we use more universal screeners that may also significantly take time, some of the time that our counselors now utilize in doing a lot of one-to-one types of things, can we do it more universally across a grade? And then identify some singletons here or there that may assist us in doing some things with those counselors more so than we're doing right now. So from a programmatic, we're trying to look forward in creating and planning a framework across 6 elementaries, really across K-12, but most importantly identifying it across the 6 elementaries to really create that a fidelity of what we're doing and making sure that that framework is in place not only in Colebrookdale and Boyertown L, but it's happening at Washington and New Hanover and with a multitude of buildings. That's always a challenge. And you have in a district in which there's such discrepancy among the population, meaning the volume, the enrollment sizes of the building, that also creates challenges to it. You know, there's never complete equalness with it, but we're trying to, with this plan, begin with an identity of, we know we have some vast differences when it comes to our counseling services at some of the elementaries that is far different than from one building to the next. And as we propose and we plan out and create a strategic plan around, some of which will include a multi-system of approach, we know these are positions that are identifiable. We know they would be in a suggested plan to utilize because of the work that we see forward with this in handling not only the behavioral side, but assisting in the academic side. We have some very good interventionist specialists right now that really dig deep into things with academic side. The missing component is that behavioral, and we've seen, and most school districts have seen in the last 5 years a significant increase in the behavioral manifestations throughout the building with students, and we need to be able to support that and intervene in appropriate ways. So this is a system that also identifies the behavioral side of things as well. So thank you.
The next item that Mrs. Landis will discuss will be the financial literacy. That is a PD curriculum mandate effective for the 2026-27 school year.
Financial literacy is something that you had heard about just a few months ago. I believe it was when Mr. Sparks was at Gilbertsville Elementary to talk to you about program of studies and projected a little bit into the future for the high school. So starting in the 26-27 school year, there is a state mandate for our students to all have access to participate in a financial literacy course. And you may remember that we talked about doing that with our junior class starting in the 26-27 school year. And in order for all of our juniors to be able to take that, it would be a half credit course, so all students would take it for a half year as a 0.5 credit course at the high school. It would take 2 teachers in order to teach all of those junior students in that course in a given year. So if, as you may recall, when Mr. Sparks spoke about that, he said, you know, in order to not have to eliminate any current course offerings or take away any of the AP courses or any of those things that we currently have available to our students, it would take 2 additional teachers to teach those financial literacy courses. So we were proposing to include one of those positions in the budget for the upcoming 25-26 school year to kind of build up in preparation for that. And then the second one we would be looking at for the following year.
Mr. Stout is now going to share the full-day kindergarten initiative.
So when we think about our full-day kindergarten opportunities, I believe a couple months ago when Ms. Denicola had created the budget presentation to give an overview of what we were thinking to move towards the future, this topic was discussed. It's certainly not a topic that could happen overnight, and we have to be able to work towards a vision for what all-day kindergarten looks like in the Boyertown Area School District. So currently we have 19 sections of kindergarten throughout our 6 elementary schools. So without looking at projections 2 to 3 years out, I took the 19 sections and divided that in half because we would need 9.5 teachers to meet our current registration enrollment numbers at our elementary schools. So we would need to add 9.5 full-time employees into our projections for that time at which we would be looking at full-day K. Again, whether that's 2, whether that's 3 years out, we would be, we're in the process of forming a committee, a very small committee to start, which is going to consist of many stakeholders within the district to analyze the needs. There are numerous school districts that are neighboring that have moved over to this model recently, so we will absolutely be looking at what kinds of studies and what kinds of projections they had done. Some of the things that we'll be looking at, some of the scenarios will be the cost, the staffing, staffing, the facilities usage. Do we have the amount of space within our buildings? The curricular needs, the technological needs, transportation, food services, instructional time, and opportunities for our students. So again, as we think about that and the benefits of all-day K, we'd be looking at the students and their ability to have their educational needs and provide individualized, differentiated instruction in doubling the amount of time that they are with us during a particular day. So there are a lot of things to consider, and we are in the process of the early stages of projecting what those needs would be. Because this is going to be a front-facing presentation, there are 3 resources on there that are resources that you can look at your leisure to support the all-day K environment.
The next item is our support staff retention and recruitment, and Mr. Hahn will be reviewing this.
I need to drive from my pivot table for a second, so let's see if we can get on here. Okay. So obviously, one of the things that we've been discussing for many months is the support staff salary ranges and looking at how we can get some of our lowest paid employees to a wage that they can obviously live on. So one of the recommendations is for all of our support staff members is providing $1 an hour increase for the beginning for the 25-26 school year, which would be a July 1 start. In addition to that is also looking at our contracted staff through CRESS. CRESS sends us over 150 staff members across our whole district each day. Okay, we're averaging roughly about 1,100 hours per day of supports to our students, and that's everything from paraprofessionals to intervention staff to PCAs, RBTs, obviously providing the supports to the students who need it most. That cost would be roughly, with the $1 an hour increase for the number of hours per day, with the up cost that is charged for the admin cost, it would roughly be a $230,000 spend for the district for the 25-26 school year. Okay. When we look at our support staff, the BCIU sends out on an annual basis the survey to all the districts in regards to ancillary benefits and management salaries, support staff salaries, tuition reimbursements, all the different things that go into running a school district in regards to personnel. That information and survey goes out every fall, and it was released at the end of November, beginning of December, to Mrs. Denicola, who shared it obviously with me. And I'm going to just go through a few pivot tables with you regarding a few positions within our support staff and where we landed on that $1 an hour increase. So on this, increase the size quickly. So this is just custodial staff. So obviously the districts that are represented here has in column B the minimum actual paid. We start out at $14 an hour for our custodians. There is a 40-cent differential. So if we sort this and just look at what the average would be, we're looking at over $16 an hour. It comes out to $16.69 an hour is the average for that grouping. If we look at another group, and we can just go to, let's go to maintenance. Maintenance is a good group to look at. We start our staff, our maintenance crew out at $18 an hour. The average of those school districts that have a like or similar position is $24 and change. Well below the other districts and Berks. And I do not have the Montgomery County numbers. I have requested the information from the Montgomery County IU. Once I have that data, I can share it obviously with the board in regards to the comparisons for that county as well. If we look at one other group, we can look at food service staff. Look at a manager, food service manager. We're well below the average there is $20. So as you can see, we have some room for growth. This is a starting point for us with $1 an hour recommended increase for our support staff. It's going to roughly be 139 employees, and it's going to be roughly a $328,000 spend for the 25-26 school year. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. What did the sum mean? The sum or actual mean paid out?
So the max actual paid out. So the sum, the grand total is just obviously the total number for all those. The actual sum is if they have a max person in that position.
Okay.
So the minimum is the starting wage, and then the max is someone that they have in that position. What is the max hourly wage that they're currently earning?
Okay.
Yep.
And that, on a yearly basis of that, what is the percentage of increase?
It's approximately like a 9% increase overall when you take into account the potential increase that they would receive as part of their normal annual increase. That takes effect July 1. So all in with the dollar, it's approximately 9% increase.
Thank you.
Mr. Shield is now going to speak on some of our safety initiatives.
Hello. One of the things that I think Boyertown has strove very hard to do is make our buildings safe. From when I started here 23 years ago and everybody had a master key to the high school to now where we've retained all the master keys and people are using badges to get in, the district has done everything I think that we have come up with feasible to remain safe. We've built vestibules, removed door handles, we've done cameras, we've done the key cards, all of those different things. And then we're always striving to do better. So the PCCD puts out a 3-level, 3-tier system, which is a very long list. And we have distributed that into all the administrators. And Officer Boehm and myself have been going to the schools to see where we can improve on our safety initiatives, trying to meet all the tier 1s, which Ms. Horton told us about, and go to tier 2 and tier 3. We do have some tier 2 and 3 completed, but we have not by far reached all of them. One of the things we want to continuously improve is our ability to maintain those systems and improve as new technology comes out. We improved our camera system using some AI and analytics to make it easier for us to share with local law enforcement. If we have an incident on our grounds, that we can actually just email them the videos instead of having to put it on a flash drive and drive it there. Things like that. So any questions with security initiatives?
So I think some of the things also just more recently this year as the safety initiatives that were hosted is that, door sensors were applied so that, we know and administration knows within each of the buildings when a door might be ajar, a door of egress. And certainly we want to maintain very limited opportunities for entry and really try to maintain 1 or 2 entry points at a building. And try to limit any egress, and we've censored all doors to that. We've changed some of the software inside of our camera systems so that we're better equipped at navigating, more quickly navigating our camera systems, most especially when you think about the size of Bash High School. It's a pretty large facility and the amount of cameras that go in that. One of the things that we will be recommending, and you'll see this come down the road, and we're going to need to do a better job of creating a refreshment cycle and a financial refreshment cycle with cameras, so that we're appropriately cycling these cameras when needed. Many of these, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if they reach 6-8 years,
Usually
max 10.
Usually you buy the license for the life of the cameras. The new cloud cameras are actually 10 years.
10
so
years.
It's a little better of a lifespan than the old cameras. So you buy the license up front, and when that license is up, basically the camera's done. And then you're moving on to a better camera and a longer lifespan.
And you have to think in those levels, we have, essentially 10 buildings, nine schools themselves. We have the Ed Center. We do have facilities, so really 11 buildings, and we need to create a better cycle of refreshment. If they're going 10 years, that can easily be done in how we're addressing that. And that is something that we're going to move forward in recommending to the board when it comes to some of that budgetarily here in the near future. We don't have facts and figures for you this evening with regard to some of those, but we did inside of our tech budget do have some initiatives related to some of the safety things that we still have not completed when it comes to some other features. So it's something that we were heavily reliant on for PCCD, for some of the grant opportunities. What used to sit outside the general budget, now PCCD operates really inside of the monies that will come from the state, and they really are applied as part of what your revenue cycle is coming in from the state. You still need to apply for a number of these, but they're concentrated really inside. So it's not outside money any longer as much as it once was. So we are constantly still looking for outside grant opportunities to be able to help supplement some of the things that we need for this. But safety of our students and staff is certainly paramount, and we want to make sure that we're as protected as we possibly can when it comes to that. And the district itself has really done a nice job, my estimation, with a lot of the personnel, the police that we now have, the security agents that we have, and there is a good system of that working inside the school buildings themselves, which has really led to a very successful first half of the school year and a safe first half of the school year, and can really be attributed back to some of the investment that the board and the district has made in prior years. So, thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Mr. Stout will now touch on our virtual learning program.
So I'm thinking back to my many years here within the Boyertown Area School District, and kind of being at the forefront of the virtual academy and the different models that we've had over the years. It certainly has had a different spin. And I think about in the early days when we were trying to really fight the outside cyber charter institutions, and this is the wrong way, we shouldn't be doing this. There's a tipping point, and the tipping point was probably during the pandemic, that we had to kind of change our mindset and think about how we can create a virtual environment to combat or to be competitive for those outside virtual programs. So I have complete kudos out to the Office of Teaching and Learning and what they've done over the years to create our current model. So when we look at our current model of instruction, we have, this is approximately, because this can change depending on when students move into our district or when students move out of our district, but we have approximately 5 elementary school students that are in our virtual academy. We have 7 students at the middle level in our virtual academy, and our biggest impact, where it has the biggest amount of need, is at our high school level, where we have approximately 82 full-time students in our virtual academy and 45 part-time students. So the estimated cost to support, I believe, 139 students is about $390,000. So if I do my quick math, and Ms. Denicola, you can be proud of me here, it costs us about $2,806 per student to educate each one of our students virtually. And the benefit of the virtual model that we provide is it is based upon our teachers here within the Boyertown Area School District. The students have access to all the resources that are available within our district, and we can control students who participate in our program, can provide interventions, can provide different levels of support that take place. We also took the opportunity over the past few years to look at the model of curriculum that is being provided by many of the outside cyber institutions, and we landed on Accelerate as one of the most popular curricular programs, and we do provide the Accelerate platform for our students. So that being said, with what we do here, when Ms. Denicola threw up numbers earlier that we invest, I think it was $6 million to outside cyber charter institutions, the average average non-special education student rate is $15,972 per student that we lose to an outside charter institution with a cost that we pay for our teachers to run the program, $2,806. Again, if my simple math tells me, we are saving about $13,000 per student to educate students virtually. Our numbers virtually, since we've moved away from the pandemic X amount of years ago, have stayed pretty consistent over these years to really have that stay within the Boyertown Area School District. If you look at Ms. Denacola's numbers earlier for the outside cyber charters, those have stayed relatively consistent as well. So our recommendation is to move forward with our current model of virtual instruction for our students.
And just to piggyback on Mr. Stout, and I think one of the things that you have to understand is that those monies that we're assisting in that virtual program over the past 4 years were coming from ESSER funding. That funding has now gone away, and hence the reason we're bringing this as a continued initiative in the district, and yet assumed inside the general budget for this. We do think the cost benefit of having our own teachers deliver that type of instruction and really uniquely program independently almost to a certain degree for our students is really powerful beyond what any outside contracted type of service that we'd be able to do. I can't speak for the value of what a charter is, but I know we can do it significantly less expensive than an outside charter could.
So everything we've discussed, how does it impact our 2025-26 proposed budget? The 2025-26 proposed budget, it maintains all positions and programs. It includes a $1 per hour increase to support retention of support staff and contracted support positions. It improves upon our student supports by including an additional 2.5 school counselors, and it supports future initiatives with those 2.5 counselors, a financial literacy position of 1 FTE, full-day kindergarten 2 FTEs, and special education teachers 8 FTEs. So when we say that it supports the future initiatives, we are building those into our budgeted numbers so we start to build the capacity to have the revenue to support those items as we roll them out in future years. So how do we accomplish this tremendous investment in our students? Our 2025-26 budgeted revenue is $146,614,434, while our budgeted expenditures are $150,695,308. So while there is a 3% tax increase within our budgeted revenue for 2025-26, we would also be looking to utilize fund balance of $4,080,874 to support our programs and our future initiatives. Our current general fund balance, we have an unassigned fund balance of $11,050,601, and that is within the PDE guidelines of having no more than 8% of budgeted expenditures as unassigned fund balance. We have assigned fund balance of $14 million for future budgetary needs, and we have a committed fund balance that the district committed many years ago, $4.1 million for future PSERS costs. So the estimated 2025-26 use of fund balance would decrease our assigned fund balance to $9,919,126. So it's a combination of taxpayer support, combination of utilization of the fund balance that we have available to further our initiatives and maintain all our programs that we are currently offering. And that is the presentation.
Just to follow up on Mrs. Denacola's, I think when we're in the early stages, right? This is meant to be a workshop discussion, to be able to present a number of things to you. One of the things that's significant is that we've said this before: a school and its community, a school district has to match its community to a great degree, and the way tax laws and codes are written currently, the local community supports a school district greatly financially, along with all the other components that they do. We have an adjusted Act 1 index cap ceiling at 4.8. we do feel that helping to fund the school district in a manageable way at a 3% increase is a great interest to both the community and school district with the positions that we're recommending to really help with the framework and help with the components necessarily to make continuous improvement within the school district. You know, put our students into positions to be successful, give them the supports needed, challenge them in the critical ways they need to be challenged. And thinking long and hard about this in the short time I've been here, but the administration has been here, and coming to a sense of and meeting with throughout the buildings and meeting with the administration necessary to really put forward, even without currently a strategic plan, but thinking what sort of positions would be in a forward-thinking strategic plan. Some of all of the positions that we came up with that are critical to meeting caseload sizes, meeting recommended criteria for programs. These are the positions that are most crucial to us right now. In addition to that, it's, and we've heard this from the board in the past as well, is our support staff, right? They're the backbone of any school district. Most of the support staff are regionally located, if not right inside of our own school district boundaries. And they're the voice of our school district, right? They're the folks that, like we said, they're the backbone. And recognizing them, not only this year, but as we move forward and thinking critically about, this is a start for us to and to be able to recognize, help to retain, and possibly even recruit in the future. Right now, staffing in school districts is a great issue. No matter the positions, whether it's support staff, professional staff, even administrative staff, it is crucial and it's critical right now. And for us to recognize that, our hope is that assists them in some way, and it does offer some future thought about what we can do next with regard to that work group as well. So I think some of the things we've laid out for you tonight, it's, going back and looking at some of the original data, we have a lot of things that, while our student enrollment is fairly flat right now and PDE projections are fairly flat, one of the things that we have a lot of things that are increasing, whether it's special education, our ELL population, our English learner population, how do we address charters and some different ways to deal with that. Our economically disadvantaged group is continuing to go up. So to combat some of those things, thinking fully into this is why we've recommended the positions necessary that we believe not just for next year will help, but certainly in part of a larger strategic plan that's going to be put together here in the next a few months. That'll be large components of that. And doing all of those things at a 3% increase and managing that. And one of the things that's critical to a school district is always their fund balance. Strong school districts work to manage that fund balance to help soften in to be able to limit some of the increase when it comes to tax percentages along the way. A fund balance, you can think of it almost as somewhat as your savings account, and you tap into your savings account for those things sometimes that are just that happen upon you, but also some things that you plan that you can soften by not having to go out and borrow or not having to completely eradicate your checking account. So thinking about it in ways of that to soften that and manage and still maintain a 3% increase is something important. So enough talking from me. If we'd like to have a conversation here, if there's questions you have, if there's questions that you don't have yet and that you have, I really encourage you to send them to me. We'll call all those questions together to be able to provide answers back to you all at one time, probably take them in a regular meeting prior to a next special meeting that we could have with finance. But we're open to any discussion that you'd like to have that we might be able to answer today.
I would just like to add that the 3% tax increase, which equates to the .952 mils, equates to about additional revenue of about $2.7 million to the district. Also, I'd like to add that using that assigned fund balance at that $4,080,000 number, I don't believe would have any impact on our bond rating, should we need to do a refunding of a bond or anything like that.
Mr. Upthorpe?
Yeah, I'm looking at the committed fund balance for the PESers, the 4.1 million. Wasn't that going down? Is that?
PESers has leveled, the level of increase of PESers has leveled out, but it is still at a 34% rate. Those amounts were committed many years ago for the large PESers increases, but the district never tapped into those. We could commit those for other purposes at a board level. We could make an action to commit those for other purposes, whether it be full-day kindergarten or any other initiative, but that's what those dollars were.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Denicola, what's the future, what has PDE or what has PESers said in regards to like 10-year outlook on that?
The 10-year outlook is not jumping at those large levels of like 4, 5, and 6% each year. It's maintaining relatively consistent. That's scary.
Mr. Stout, can you mute the Zoom? Can you? That was the voice from above, right? She's going to be ringing in your ear.
Again, we know this was a lot of information, but we think it's a lot of good information that you guys can now analyze and take a look at, ask us further questions, that we hope it kind of gives you a better idea of what's going into that budget and the pieces that make it up.
Let's just take a 2-minute pause here till we correct this issue. Any other questions that the board has at this time? Mr. Zalata?
Excuse me. Basically, one of the questions which surprised me is us being so low in supporting our students, yet we have such a high budget. And then we say we don't, the board has said numerous times we got to focus on teaching the students, the kiddies, as they would say it. And we don't have any money budgeted for that, and we look like we tried to save into that. At the meantime, we talk about Boyertown's reputation, and yet we're not spending the money. So my answer is, I guess, is there a way that we can have another, discuss other things, have another finance meeting that, can set some kind of path for the school district to get us back in that line? I mean, do we have, is that based on not enough AP classes or teaching, or do we have too many kids per class? It just seems like, I don't want to save anymore. We seem to just have to worry about saving, and we're not doing our students and our community a favor by doing it that way.
Well, I think some of the things you saw tonight presented by us aim to accomplish some of the things that you recognize, right? A school district, I think you can compare it similar to, a cruise ship, right? That you don't turn a cruise ship overnight and so forth. We're not a speedboat, but one of the things that you can do is make calculated efforts to figure out programmatically and personnel-wise the types of things that a school district can invest in order to make continuous improvement. You saw the scores the other a week ago in the meeting that was hosted in our regular committee meeting, some of which we're above the state. They're maybe not at the level we want to get to, and they are increasing, but they're doing it in a slow, methodical way. Some of these initiatives are aimed at, yes, reducing caseload sizes, which help to intervene in many different and ways in which we can do that throughout a K-12 system and approach. The investment in teachers and the investment in personnel and the inspiration to increase salary rates all are meant to do the things I think that you're asking us to do. So, while it's important to look back and understand the past, it's also really important to look forward and to create a bit of a vision. So in the next 3-4 months, we're going to be pulling together stakeholder groups to create a strategic plan, to create vision and goals. Absent of that at the moment, while we still have to create a budget for next year, these are some of the things that we would envision would be part of that process in order to significantly make contributions to be able to make improvements along the way, to assist and intervene with our special education, to reduce caseload sizes for counselors on the behavioral side, to make an investment into a future full-day kindergarten program and invest back to our own personnel. They're all foundational aspects that we would ask that the board consider in thinking about those things that will make improvements. Not overnight, right? Again, we're a yacht. It's going to take a lot longer than it's going to take a speedboat to get there. But these are things through time that we truly believe will help in investment. But we also need to be very cognizant of our community and understand those facets. That's hence the reason we really looked at a rebate program to identify some things for our more vulnerable community side and be very considerate of that, utilizing fund balance, again, monies that were meant to go back eventually into the educational program and do that. And good financial school districts utilize fund balance in ways to be able to do the types of things that Mrs. Denicola is suggesting here with this process as well. So again, we have months to go, and we would certainly look forward to some feedback from the board and any members community in regard to this as we bring forward other thoughts and ideas and we get closer to setting a budget. One of the things that you as a board are in charge of as a board of governance, probably the most important thing, is spending time and having good debate and having professional debate about the setting of a budget, and then eventually maintaining and setting that budget by the end of June. It's probably one of the most important jobs that you do as a board, and it's difficult and very, very challenging. We're talking about $150 million. It's a significant amount of money that we want to make sure that you're fully aware of and how and what we intend to do and hope to do with it. Ms. Kress?
I would just be curious, under special ed, I didn't see anything about gifted, like in terms of enrollment, projected enrollment, teachers' caseloads. I don't think we've added any gifted teachers in probably forever, as far as I know.
Yeah, and where am I at here? There she is. Kelly, do you want to speak to any of that with caseloads and sizes and what any of the data revealed?
Sure. We have not added any gifted teachers recently. We have seen some of our enrollment, and I can provide that information to you. I don't have it right here with me regarding gifted. We have seen some of our enrollment drop, but we are looking to increase that by doing some universal screenings and things like that, so we can continue to increase that.
Nicole, one more quick question. I'm sorry about taking up time. You signed fund balance, the 14 million. Can you break down some of the stuff that's been assigned in there that has already been budgeted?
It's just assigned for future budgetary needs, so nothing specific.
Mr. Zawada, was your first question about slide 12? When you were looking at costs? Okay, slide 12 is somewhat misleading by the fact that the more students you have, the more you spread out your foundational and fixed costs. So your number will go down further. What you need to look at is Wilson, which is around the same level we have with students, and we're spending about the same amount of dollars they are. If you go to a small school, your foundational and fixed costs are now spread along fewer students, and it raises your costs up. So that slide needs a little bit more explanation. We're not really that far off of everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. Appreciate it.
I have a question about us using $4 million out of the fund balance. Have we given any thought to the future, like how much would come out next year when you have to fill the rest of the needs that you want to fill? Or are you projecting that if there's another 3% increase next year, bringing in those expenditures, you're going to end up, maybe you go in a hole only $1.5 million, and when does it stop? When do we stop hitting that fund balance?
Well, I think we answer that when we, bring back to the board, when the administration brings back the recommended full strategic plan that will guide the decision-making.
Okay.
To talk about what are the things we need to do. I think there's a lot added to this 25-26 budget to support students and increase programming for students, and we're building that capacity so we don't try and build it all in 1 year. I think those are smart things to do. We do have the fund balance to do that, and we will continue to, provide board updates on that and tie in what it looks like when that strategic plan is brought back and built with the board.
Just a quick glance, it looks like if you add all those FTEs, it would add about 1.5 million to the base costs going forward each year.
Historically, like, I don't know, last 5 years or so, have we always been taking from the fund balance every year?
We have not.
Okay.
Have we done anything to this big before?
Have we projected this big before? No, we have not. We have not.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, do we intend, are we still using the safety firm we hired to tell us how to fix up things at our school?
So, yeah, thank you. So, Mrs. Deroff, if you can hear me, the district, I think at the end of last year, contracted for this year with that organization. That was a $10,000 contract expense. We are right now considering whether or not we'd care to renew that or not for next year. We do believe we can probably bring most of the work that's inside of that contract back in-house into our own. We believe we have the expertise inside the district to be able to handle many of the components that are currently handed out to that contract.
Watching the YouTube feed, about 10 seconds behind. That's the feedback. Well, go ahead.
Quite a few years. The second question I have is, do we have a firm we're using to get nurses for subs?
Yes, we do. We use GHR services for our staff nurse and CSN needs.
Subs that
GHR services for our staff nurse and CSN needs.
Are we that short in nursing staff for subs that we're spending $2,000 a day?
We're currently short 3 staff nurses and 1 CSN, so we are down 4 total nurses. And we continue to recruit for all of those positions as well as future needs as well.
Okay, did we? The tax, I've been getting calls about taxing, and I see tonight we're probably going to go with 3%. Did we think about doing what other school districts are doing, and they freeze the taxes for the senior citizens at what they're doing this year?
Ms. Deeroff, I think what you're asking is something that's illegal that cannot be done. What we're asking the board to consider is a rebate program, and this is tied into the state tax rebate program that a senior would qualify through the state program first, and then would identify a rebate through us. So being able to just simply freeze, there's tax codes and laws that prohibit the school district from doing such things.
Did we think about hiring seniors to work in our schools like they do in other school districts to help them out?
So one of the things we're considering here at the Education Center is the possibility of doing that here at our reception area and with a number of other tasks, and whether we develop that as a volunteer system or if we do it as a pay scale system. That is the demographic of individual that we're targeting for that here at the Ed Center.
The $15 million approximately that's going to cost us to fix Boyertown Elementary, has that been taken out of the fund balance?
So that Mrs. Deeroff does not sit within fund balance. That is a capital reserve in which we, at our special meeting on February the 18th to discuss facilities and policy, we plan to go into depth in regard to that. This evening you heard nothing as it relates to facilities and the capital reserve to support that category. So that is not tied to fund balance itself. That is a whole separate account, and we plan to go into detail on that in 3 weeks.
The unassigned. So the monies we have in the assigned and the unassigned and the committed fund, that's $15 million has not been taken out.
So that the amounts that were disclosed in this presentation relate to our general fund balance. At our February meeting, we will be discussing what's available in fund balance in our capital reserve funds, two separate funds.
Okay, Mrs. Deeroff, we're going to move on to other questions.
Any other questions? There's no one signed up for public comment period number 2, so at this time, board comment. Mr. Updegrove?
I have no comment.
Thank you, everyone, for that information and presentation. Ditto, thank you, it was very helpful.
Is Ms. Diamond able to speak?
I don't think she's on.
Okay. Mr. Brophy?
Thanks for having this. This is the type of meeting I've been looking for a while. The only thing I would ask is the presentation material, if I could have that ahead of time so I could look it over and be more cognizant of what we're going to discuss before we get here, I'd appreciate that.
We will make sure we do that for the February for our facilities, capital project reserve, and policy. Try to have that to you. Absolutely.
Mr. Alf, any more comments?
Mr. Roth, any final comments?
Ask is if we could please have if I could please have copies of everything that was presented tonight, because I couldn't see anything and I could hear very little, so I would like copies of all that was presented.
Mrs. Deeroff, just so you know, it's available in board docs, but we can make hard copies for you here, and we can arrange to get the hard copies to you. But you can go in and download a copy yourself if needed.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The tax rebate plan that was spoken about, if we would head in that direction, would we be able to get the word out to those who could be qualified? Right, you're gonna have to apply for it, right? And so it's not a concern, but those who need it most may not be aware of it. So I just like to say that now, so we can make sure we can.
Would they be applying to us? Or would
Yes, they would apply to us.
Yeah.
We would generally coordinate with our local legislatures as well, to ensure that they help us, get that information out to the community. But we would look for ways to reach the full community on that.
And the nice thing is that we can work through the tax collectors with regard to address and some direct mailings. We can put ads in the newspaper. There's a few different ways to be able to genuinely try to reach some seniors who maybe technology is not their first vehicle to gain information through. Yeah.
I don't have much to add. That was the most in-depth financial report I think we've ever gotten in 4 years, so I appreciate all the work you guys put into it. And I look forward to seeing what we get out of this.
And I'll just make some comments. I want to thank the board. And some of the materials this evening, I unfortunately, just due to the timing of my appointment and so forth, wasn't able to get some things. But we will make sure to certainly have that stuff in front of you well before, so that you come with some questions that we may not have even thought about ourselves. So, yeah, I do thank all of you for taking some time listening, hearing, and as we build this budget together, it's highly important. It's our school, it is our community. They need to match to the best of our ability. Our charge is always, how do we maintain and accelerate and support our students the best way possible, and in order to put the best resources in front of them so they can reach their potential at all times. Being cognizant of that, though, its impact, and you saw that tonight, right? Nearly 75 to 85% across our two counties is local tax, and that's important for us to recognize, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep that to the minimum as we do all the things that we said we want to try to do with our students. So just one last plug, we did send, and you've heard me reference strategic plan. We will be seeking out some stakeholder groups. We have 6 different stakeholder groups inside of our community. They vary from students all the way to households that are taxpayers that pay taxes but may no longer have children in their homes or never had children in their homes and pay a tax, to build a strategic plan over the next 4 months. For the board's approval as we break for summer, so that we can in future budgeting cycles match a budget against those strategic goals. What we're trying to bring to you this evening were goals and initiatives that we are thinking forward about, that would be in a plan that we would create to best degree, and to offer positions that we know would help in reaching some of those and maximizing some of our ambitions towards some of the goals that we would like to achieve. So, there was thought put in, but while we're doing all the planning, we're also having to build a budget to get that approved by the end of the school year, and budgets moving forward will be matched up against each year's goals inside that strategic plan. So my plug here is if we want to hear from you as a stakeholder, there was a survey sent out, whether you're working in district or you're a resident or you're a family or a parent, whatever your stakeholder nature is, please respond to that, take some time. We'd love to hear from you. That'll be data that will be very, very important for us to have as qualitative data as we build forward some of the planning. So take a look at that. It's on our website. There was an ad in the past Sunday, and there will be some more advertising for that as we seek out some feedback for that. So, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Trophy motions.